welcome to Bake to the Future, the show where we examine what is happening in the baking industry with a future-focused lens. I'm Haley Blumenreich.
And I'm Katie Jewell.
We are returning to our regularly scheduled programming with shorter updates from the ABA team. Today, we are bringing you the latest information about nutrition policy and specifically the recent activity from the White House on nutrition policy goals.
And to help us better understand this topic, we have with us ABA's Lee Sanders, the Senior Vice President of Government Relations and Public Affairs. Welcome back to the show, Lee.
Hey, thanks, Katie. Thanks, Haley.
So there's been a lot of activity recently. We're recording this in mid-July. There are a few big things going on, one of which doesn't happen every day, and that's the White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health. So, Lee, could you fill us in and the members in on what this conference is, why we're doing it, and what all do you know about it?
Great. Well, yeah, that's a great question, Katie. And so this is the first time in 50 years and will only be the second White House conference of this type. And so what we do know is that when they did this 50 years ago, it was really transformational. There were a lot of recommendations that came out that were executed. There were 1,800 recommendations, in fact, that were discussed. And of those, 1,600 were agreed to and executed within 2 years of the conference. And so I do see that this is another historic conference. I think.
And sorry to interrupt you. What were some of the big things that then came out of it that people might know today from the last one?
Yeah, a good question. That would be food stamps, SNAP, as we know as the SNAP program now. So that would be probably the biggest and most transformational.
So when we are talking about big changes, these are big picture policy pieces of policy that the White House is looking to tackle, specifically around hunger, nutrition, and health.
Yes, exactly.
So what's happening?
So, the White House announced that this was happening, and to gather information from the public and from the food industry, from academia, they have had a number of listening sessions around the country. They've done these regionally. They've also had some of these that are done specifically for the food industry and agriculture sector. And so ABA has, to date, we've participated in a regional session. That was on June the 9th. On June the 22nd, we were invited to be part of a food industry listening session. And then other groups are also sponsoring convening sessions. And so actually tomorrow, July 20th, I'm going to be participating in an FMI convening session for the food industry. And so in these sessions, we talk about the different pillars of the conference. And, in those I can talk a little bit about. We've got their 5 pillars. And so, ABA has worked with our members and then also with the Grain Chain and the Food and Beverage Issue Alliance, both groups that we chair, to think about the, opportunities to partner, opportunities for innovation, and how we can be helpful as part of this process and partnering with the White House. So the 5 pillars, the first is to improve health access and affordability. The second is to integrate nutrition and health. The third is to empower all consumers to make and have access to healthy choices. The fourth pillar is physical activity for all. And then the fifth pillar is to enhance nutrition and food security research. And so there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to offer, both as the Food and Beverage Issue Alliance and as the Grain Chain. And so ABA has been leading in these areas, and I'd love to talk to you more about that.
Yeah, I'm curious, could you give us maybe a peek into some of the comments that ABA is making sure they're communicating out to the White House in response to the different pillars and discussions?
Sure. Most importantly, we're committed to improving food access and affordability while empowering all consumers to make and have access to healthy food choices. And so as part of that, thinking about improving food access and affordability to all, bakers, as we all know, are constantly innovating with a goal of providing food retailers, food service, and feeding programs a wider range of nutritious, affordable, and easy to prepare grain foods. And so I think that there's a lot of activity going on in this area. And so being able to share examples like that with the White House, thinking about sustainable foods, grains are sustainable. And so that's another thing we're able to talk about and really tout the versatility of grains for all different kinds of food, all kinds of applications, and for all types of ethnic foods, which is great. And then thinking about integrating nutrition and health. We think about the dietary guidelines, and in the 2020 dietary guidelines, we just wanted to make sure that the White House was aware that whole grains, fruits, and vegetables were the 3 foods that were deemed essential to the plate. So it's also an opportunity for us to educate and talk about, the real nutrition value, the nutrition density that's found in grain foods, all different kinds. It's also a great opportunity for us to educate on the value of enriched grains and how they fill the critical gap in shortfall nutrients such as iron, folate, and the 3B vitamins. So those are really important things to talk about. The other thing is about half of the dietary iron in the U.S. Comes from grain foods. And so that's really a significant benefit to nutrition for consumers. I think the culturally diverse applications of all types of grain foods is really something that's exciting to talk about right now as well.
And you mentioned briefly a few minutes ago the dietary guidelines. And before we start talking about the dietary guidelines, because that's something that happens every 5 years, I want to talk a little bit more about the logistics of this White House conference. I think that there's still some mystery around exactly when this conference is happening, who's a part of it. What are some of the things that we know now that members might need to be aware of for the White House conference?
Well, we do know that, they have a portal and they were looking for comments. While they had a deadline of July the 15th, I understand that that's kind of a soft deadline. And so there's still an opportunity to submit comments. The plan was for the White House to synthesize all the comments that they received and then put out a report at the end of July talking about what they've learned from these different listening sessions. And then that was supposed to inform the September conference. We still don't have a date for that September conference. We're hearing that date could slip and it might not be in September. And that could be because some of the comments that they were counting on haven't been submitted yet. We've submitted ours, but I think there's some others that are still outstanding. And we understand too that September event or fall event, or whenever it may be, is also going to be a platform for them to unveil kind of a new platform. In fact, it's going to be an opportunity not only to have a conference, but to have a press event, and then to also gather companies that are making commitments that would be transformational to the food system. And those will be announced at that event. We also know that probably, I think it's very likely, I think others would agree, that the outcome and the announcements, what we learn in September, will inform the dietary guideline process, which will start in early 2023. What we've done so far is there have been a couple of opportunities to comment. Back in May, there was an opportunity to comment on the type of scientific questions that would be used in the review for 2025. It's a multi-year process. And so the grain chain submitted comments there on definitions, nutrient density, obesity. Those were the kind of questions that they were looking for feedback on. And so they've gotten that feedback. They also asked for criteria. The next step was to ask for criteria on Dietary Guideline Advisory Committee nominees. We had actually shared that information in our early comments, so we didn't submit comments on that particular topic through the grain chain, but we did through the Food and Beverage Issue Alliance just recently. And we also learned when that notice came out that the actual review process will start at the end of 2022 or early 2023. They'll have 5 public meetings, just like they did last time. And so that will be an opportunity on the occasion of each of those meetings to perhaps speak publicly and to also submit additional written comments to further educate on some of the great research that's come out over the last 5 years, emerging research that would be really useful to the advisory committee to see.
Awesome. So we're all over it with the White House conference, dietary guidelines. You know, we know as the association when these things happen, where to go. What do our members need to do at this point with either of those initiatives?
Well, I mean, I think it's great if our members are at the table and have representatives at the Food Technical Regulatory Affairs Committee, or if they're on that list. The F-Track is being kept up to date as there are new developments. When there are opportunities to weigh in with feedback or comments, we're going through that F-Track professional group to gather that information.
Okay,
And
that's helpful. Yeah.
when these sound like big policy decisions that can come out of the White House conference and also the dietary guidelines. What could you see happening that could impact bakers down the line?
Well, I mean, since we're there, I think there'll be opportunities for new partnerships with not only the association, but member companies. And so it's going to be an opportunity to take their innovation, share what they're doing and how that could be used to help the public and help consumers. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for messaging, communications out to the public, opportunities in the community to talk about the nutrient density and value of grains. And so I think, there's going to be new opportunities, new innovative ways to message about that and get engaged.
And speaking of communication opportunities, Lee, could you tell us about the health equity toolkit that we've come up with members and some other things related to that?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Haley. Earlier this year, ABA developed a health equity communications toolkit, and we actually were asked by the USDA strategic My Plate partners to present on that. So we did. And so, the key themes that we have within our toolkit are the importance of grain foods for school-age children, nutrient density and the value that grains bring, and then and community and sustainability. And so, we've been able to incorporate messages for National Breakfast Month, Family Meal Month, National Whole Grain Month, and then Back to School Month, all things that are coming up in September, end of August, September. And so, these messages are ones that not only do we have a toolkit for our members, but we're using them in outreach and social media in some of these upcoming months that we'll see in the fall. We can use those messages in the dietary guideline comments that we'll be submitting. We also had a great opportunity when the Thrifty Meal Plan came out last year to talk about the value of grains, because they did include some specific funding just for grain foods. And so all these messages, the value of grains and grain and nutrient density, those are all things that we can tout and are really proud of.
Lots of opportunities for cohesive messaging around grains and nutrition. So
absolutely.
All right. Awesome. Lee, is there anything else you'd like to add where we are right now with either of these initiatives?
I would just say that it's an exciting time. It's historic. And certainly I think that this is, this conference will be something that where there will be some really new, innovative, developments that will impact maybe the way we approach our messaging, the way that we think about communicating with the public. And I'm excited to work with our members and then the other food groups that we lead through both the Grain Chain and the Food and Beverage Issue Alliance to really make a difference in consumers' lives.
Awesome. And hopefully we'll have a chance, too, to talk to members about all of these initiatives at IBIE in September, too. Hopefully we'll know a little bit more with what's going on with the White House conference by then.
Absolutely. I sure hope so.
Awesome. And with that, I want to let our listeners know they can let us know what they thought of the show by emailing hello@americanbakers.org or leave us a voicemail at baketothefuture.org. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts: Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, or Ghana.